John. Listen, I just want to thank you this week. If you followed us in Annapolis this week, I just want to thank you for that because we had great responses. And I want to share with you a little bit about what happened. This week we went to Annapolis, and the legislators were in the House on Monday talking about gun laws, and then on Wednesday. And Monday, thousands showed up in the House, and sheriffs throughout the state of Maryland showed up. And of course, mostly, I gotta say, there's a couple main just sheriffs that are going to stand up for us. And one of them, of course, is Sheriff Lewis down there in Comico County. In fact, here's what he said. Listen to this one.
And we've got your back. And my closing arguments will be, if these bills passed, we will not comply. Please know that your presence is recognized down here. We need you here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedules, leaving your family, your significant others at home, to come down here and stand up for your unalienable rights. I appreciate you being here.
And they got the place riled up. But he's not going to comply. He was talking about the H-bar law that I'm going to talk to you about. And so there's a few laws that we had to come up. There's some good ones this session, but there's some that are absolutely crazy, and they're getting further and further kind of more common sense gun legislation. So I want to share a couple of them with you. We had a lot of testimony, a lot of people. Some of them came back Wednesday, and we had Sheriff Jenkins from Frederick County testify on Wednesday, and he was pretty strong on what he had to say, and I'll let you listen to that, and I'll come back to you in a second, but here's what he had to say.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Charles Jenkins, Sheriff of Frederick County, Maryland. Issues. I'm a straight shooter, law enforcement, law and order guy, probably more so than some of you like. And I'm just here to make a couple points. First of all, just to remind everybody, you cannot legislate evil or ill intent or criminal intent. Yeah. 2013 gun law, which was supposed to be the law to end all laws. This is a wide, sweeping problem solver for everything. It hasn't worked. If I thought for 1 minute any part of this bill would improve public safety or positively impact public safety or decrease crime, I would be in favor of it. But frankly, it won't. It just won't. And I say that from a practical law enforcement standpoint, over 29 years of what I've seen. I walk in the world of, I'm a gun collector, competitive shooter, a hunter. I live in that world. I walk in that world. There are law-abiding people, by and large, the vast majority. These are not the problem. These folks are not the problem. For the sins of Baltimore City and the people who commit evil acts, and you simply can't do that. So you're proposing restrictions that are unfair, unreasonable fees, burdensome registrations, and things that really truly aren't deserved by a law-abiding community. So I'll let you go with that.
Let me review some of these laws that you have that are on, that were kind of the delegates and the senators are suggesting. Let me go over to the good side, because let me get them out of the way. Senator Huff has suggested a couple of decent laws with some amendments I think they'd be really good. One that he's always a fan of, which I'm fine with as an instructor, is you can go to MSP and request an approval for a wear and carry permit before you take the training, so it would save you money. Now, if, we try to help you. If we don't think we can get your permit, we're not going to let you into the class. I know there's places that they don't care if they can get you in, but we do the best we can, and most people, I believe, are going to do the best we can. But this law would say that you could apply to the state police, and they would give you approval. Yes, you can get a permit. There's a couple problems with the law, but the biggest one's this. There's nothing in this bill that puts the burden on government to perform. There's nothing that says you as a citizen applies to government and government must respond in so many days and tell you if you're good or not. Now, I'm sure the government's going to do the best they can, and they will get back to you shortly, but who knows how long that's going to be. you could be months or a year waiting for them. So the amendment would be put the burden on government to perform in X days if a citizen were to apply. And then I think it would be a decent bill. He also has self-defense as a good and substantial reason. That's excellent, no problems, love it. I think you should have a right to defend your family, your children, your grandmother. I think they're more important to you than the $243 you're going to deposit into the bank today. So I think that's a great bill. Also, he has one that says the fees to MSP. There are fees, and the fees can be paid. This is on I think the House side. The fees can be paid by any form, but on line 10, like in other words, check, cashier's check. But on line 10, it says that a method of approval approved by the secretary. Folks, the secretary's had since 2013 to approve another method. There's only one way to pay for an HQL, credit card. And that's really tough if you don't have credit. So I would love to see the delegates go back and amend that and say, hey, any form of payment that is normal to a business could be accepted by the government. And I think it'd be a pretty good bill. Okay, so let's talk on the bad side. The computer firearms. Of course, we react. You can't make a plastic gun, and there's a bill there, SB 8, that says you can't make a plastic gun. I don't know how effective and efficient these things are, but of course in the pre-reactionary state of government, we're going to outlaw, these plastic guns. Totally against that one. Payment of fees we've talked about that I think would be good. Now HB, there's one there in HB 96, and on the House side I think it's 346, I believe, and it's a transfer law. This is scary. Transfer law says a temporary transfer of guns is legit, right? Or illegit if you're not there. So let me give you an example. Your buddy wants to go goose hunt. And he calls you up and says, hey man, I need to go in the morning. Can I use that rifle of yours? And you hand him the gun. You're a criminal. You realize that? Because you're not in possession. You're not with him at all times. Or you're taking somebody a deer hunting for the first time, and you provide them a firearm, and you are not with the firearm at all times. Like, in other words, they're over the ridge. You're not with the firearm, the rifle. Do you think you're a criminal for that? That's what transfer is. You need to realize this. It could get crazy into husband and wives and all kinds of stuff. Like your wife can't take your gun to the range. This is really getting into some draconian type laws here. But you want to look up HB 96 or Senate Bill 346, I believe. And it has to do with transfer of a gun. Look at it and educate yourself. Now the big one that's causing all the storm is HB 786, and it's 737, I think, in the Senate side, and that has to do with long guns. That you need to have a long gun qualification license. Doesn't matter how long you've been using these things, doesn't matter how many you have, you need to have them to where you have a license to be able to get a long gun. And if you don't have a license, you got a problem. Now here's where the real issue comes in. You're going to do a sale between buddies, and so your friend is, and we heard some great testimony. We actually had a senator. It's like, well, what happens if the guy's a criminal and you didn't know he was a criminal? Well, I get that, but a complete stranger, the odds are pretty. I'd love to know how many complete stranger sales are done. Most of the time, between friends and family, you know who they are, what their background is, and what their intent is. And I don't think many gun owners in Maryland would be like, I'd love to have my gun used in a crime. Needless to say, they've made this law that has put, particularly the FFL, in a real jam up. And the jam up is this. You want to transfer a gun to me or Joe or somebody. You end up going to the FFL to get this background check performed with your LQL license or whatever the LGQL license. I don't know what it is, but anyway, you're going to get this transfer done. There's a problem. The FFL cannot do this transfer for you. An FFL cannot take a gun from Joe and send it over to Bob. The issue is that the FFL can only pull background checks on inventory in which the FFL owns. So here's what the FFL has to do. Well, Joe, you want to sell this to Bob? I have to buy it from you. So the FFL buys it from person A. Then it's going to sell it to person B. The problem is the FFL has to keep it in inventory, has to provide storage, has to be able to keep it safe, and has to be able to deal with the background checks and all this from MSP. This bill alone, they said yesterday in testimony, is going to start a cost of $12 million to the citizens, just for government to be able to run this thing. The estimates on the analysis is $3.4 billion, but that's just to get it started. That's not talking about the troopers and everybody else you need to get involved in this thing. So this is a substantial, what we call it? Waste of money. And so you got to call your senators and your delegates and be against this bill. House Bill 786, I think it's Senate Bill 737, and let them know that not going to happen. Let me go back to FFL for 1 second. So you're a small business owner in a small town in Maryland, and you have 40 people coming into your store to transfer guns. One guy has 30 guns, rifles, that he wants to transfer. So you're taking this day in, let's just say the other ones had 2 or 3. Let's say there's 70 rifles that you're going to take in a transfer. Remember, all these sellers come to transfer with the FFL, the small business owner. This man or woman has to take possession of all these guns, bring them into inventory, and store them. Because the government's going to take, Maryland's going to take 7 days. And there's a real problem. You can only get 1 gun a month under this. So do you think this guy or girl's going to store 30 guns for 30 months so this person can pick them up? Do you know the responsibility, the insurance cost, the exposure, the risk, the criminal activity that could happen from this? Because they made this law in Annapolis, and instead of having 60, 70 guns in different homes, they now, every single day, have all these guns in an FFL who's responsible to pay tens of thousands of dollars for extra storage, safes, safe rooms, vaults, whatever they're going to do to store these guns, because in Maryland, you can't do a transfer if this law were to pass instantaneously by a federal background check. You must wait your 7 days. I'm just going to leave it at that. Let you figure it out. Okay, and then the last one is House Bill 612, and that has to do with an H-bar. Basically, here's the deal. It's a competition rifle, and if you happen to have an H-bar in Maryland, and you, which is a heavy barrel gun, AR, you're going to have a big problem. And the problem is this. If you purchased it after October 1st, 2013, it's going to become an illegal gun. And you're going to have to turn it in to the government or get rid of it. So pretty much every sporting rifle purchased since October 1, 2013, that's a sporting rifle, used for competition, used for whatever, is going to become illegal. Hearing that may not get through, and I kind of hope not, right? Because that is they're going to add it as an assault rifle. So I just wanted to bring you an update on these folks. You got to stay awake on this stuff. You've got to watch how they slide these things in here. I just don't understand how we have the most deadly state in the Mid-Atlantic, how we are the home of the most deadly city in the United States of America per capita, and I believe the 21st, if it was a country, the 21st most deadly country in the world. And we believe that more common sense gun legislation to move us forward for a safer tomorrow is the answer.